Second to awesome. Welcome everyone. My name is Kyle Jackham. I am a licensed social worker and program coordinator on the Crossroads for Hope team. I am joined by Francesca Mangano, our master social work intern on the Crossroads for Hope team, who will be helping me behind the scenes. And most importantly, our presenter today, executive chef Michael Salvatore. We are happy to welcome you to the final session of our medical marijuana education series. This final session is in partnership with Ruck-Schockey Associates. To those of you who may not be familiar with our organization, Crossroads for Hope, we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization located in Bedminster, New Jersey. Our organization helps all those touched by cancer to move through a health crisis to become more active and empowered by taking control of their health and well-being. Our network of support embraces all people touched by cancer, the diagnosed and their loved ones, providing access to resources and evidence-based programs of support, education, well-being, and hope, and also offered free of charge. We are committed to upholding the dignity of all people through respect for gender identification, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, and income differences. Our vision is to be a safe space to turn to first for restoring one's whole being and improve the life of people with cancer and their families beyond the diagnosis. During today's presentation, there will be a focus on how to incorporate cannabis into your diet, plus sharing a few recipes you can try at home. Feel free to drop any questions or comments you have in the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end of the presentation. Thank you for joining us today. Mike, I will hand it off to you.
Thanks very much, Kyle. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Salvatore, Senior Director for Ruck-Schockey. We are a national consultancy doing most of our work in the healthcare space. I am a certified executive chef, and also as of about 1.5 years ago, when COVID first set in, the ACF, the American Culinary Federation, and the James Beard Foundation in New York City partnered to bring additional education to culinarians who were not working because of the pandemic. So one of the courses offered was a certificate in culinary cannabis and edibles, and working in healthcare and knowing that there are so many benefits that have been discovered in using cannabis, especially in and around cancer treatment. I thought this would be a good place to spend my time and get educated, because if it is prescribed, smoking is probably not the best way to ingest. So allow me to share my screen. And we will get started. So again, happy 420, everyone. It is very appropriate that we are hosting this on the National Day of Celebration of Cannabis. I'm going to go through a few of these, and please, again, any questions for the end, please feel free to drop into the chat. So first, a disclaimer. This presentation is solely for educational and general informational purposes only, and it's not intended to provide legal advice to participants. The presentation is not intended to be an industry standard or represent endorsement of any illegal activity. This presentation does not promote the illegal use, production, distribution, or marketing of THC or CBD, including in food and drink, which may violate federal and/or state law. But not anymore in New Jersey, I hear. Nor does this endorse or make any representations regarding the health, nutritional value, or safety regarding the use of THC and CBD in food products. So most importantly, in cannabis, there are many, many compounds. They've identified 554 unique compounds. The two main ones are THCA and CBDA, which are the acidic molecules of these two major cannabinoids. CBDA does not have any psychoactive or very, very limited psychoactive impact, where THCA potentially does. To unlock these and activate both of these compounds, the cannabis has to be heated. Ingesting raw cannabis flower, that's the buds, will not produce any effect. So the key to this is decarboxylation, and that converts the THCA and CBDA into active cannabinoids. Very easy to do. You don't need this step when you're taking raw flower and using it in a pipe or a joint. The act of smoking it gives it enough heat to activate. But when we're talking about incorporating into recipes, you have to add some heat over a prescribed period of time. So the easiest way is heat the oven to 275 Fahrenheit, coarsely chop your cannabis flower, spread evenly on parchment on a cookie sheet, bake for 20 minutes, and remove and cool before storing. This will activate both the THC, and CBD that is present in the flower that you have purchased. But for our purposes, and where I really wanted to steer this, knowing this is the third part in the series, building on that, and I know that we were visited with the owner of a dispensary. For our purposes, buying pre-made canna fats and tinctures are the best way to ensure proper and safe dosing, and this is really key. They're available at your dispensary, and they've been tested with accurate potency. This will enable your exact dose, depending on what you've been prescribed or suggested would be the best dose for you. And butter, things like fat carries all flavors and lots of good results. So fat is certainly the easiest way. So again, the key to safe and effective ingesting and use of edible marijuana is in the dosing, and it all comes down to math. And this is where, I strongly suggest when you're starting out that you purchase your infusions from a dispensary that have been tested. So just as an example, and back to arithmetic and word problems. So for example, there are 12 servings in a recipe. The recipe calls for 10¼ grams of infusion, and the potency of your canna butter infusion is 8.2 milligrams of THC per gram. So the equation is the required amount times the potency, do that first, and divide by portions to give you dosing per portion. So usually it's best to start out low and then get stronger. And beginning edibles, it's recommended a dosing of 3 to 7 milligrams per serving. So again, ingestion versus inhalation. When cannabis is smoked, the carboxylation happens automatically, and it goes into your system very, very quickly. So usually within 30 to 90 seconds, you feel the effects. When it's infused into food or drink, it must go first through the stomach and then the liver. So the absorption it takes a lot longer before it gets to your brain and has any effect. So that could take 40 to 60 minutes. Key here, go easy at first. If you're ingesting an edible and nothing's happening and you feel no effects, give it some time. Don't just eat more. because you don't want to overdo it when you're first starting out. So in addition to the THC and CBD and those beneficial compounds, there are also compounds called terpenes. And these are produced by the trichomes that surround the flower to really act as an insecticide and protect the plant. And depending on the strain or species of cannabis, you have an amazing palette of flavor that you can enjoy and utilize. And I'll just make a note here about flavor and taste. Taste is a sense. You know, there are 5 tastes: sweet, salt, sour, bitter, and umami. Umami is that overall yum that we get from soy sauce and mushrooms. But flavor, you know, taste is independent of flavor, so it's a pure sense. Flavor is 70% olfactory, so that's where these terpenes really change your cooking, and it's important when you're sourcing your compounds at the dispensary to ask about what terpenes, you know, are predominant in that particular strain. So limonene is a citrus smell and gives you a citrus flavor. It's very uplifting, euphoric, awakening. Gives you a lift. Pinene is, as you would guess, very similar to pine trees, and is great for enhanced cognition, again, uplifting and energizing. Lysine is bitter. It's has more of a sedative effect, calming and relaxing, but definitely bitter, like hops or oregano. Beta caryophyllene is more spicy, so black peppercorns, cinnamon, cassia, spices of that nature. Also can help with cognition, but is also relaxing. And one note here on black peppercorns: if you have accidentally overdone it a bit, I would suggest having some black peppercorns. You can either nibble on one or grind some onto a non-cannabis laced product, because black peppercorns are one of the best ways to take the edge off if you've had a little bit too much. Terpenoline is floral. Again, it's sedative qualities. It's calming and relaxing. Found in a lot of fruits. And linalool, which is herbal. Again, sedative, calming, and relaxing. You know, you think of lavender, and you know how pleasant that is. So by knowing your potency and then your terpenes that are present in your product, you can start to shape it at your recipes. Here's where it gets really interesting and creative. It's the entourage effect. So different varieties and strains of cannabis have different effects. Narrow leaf types tend to lift and focus, where broadleaf types are more calming and mellowing. Think clean high for the narrower leaves versus couch lock. So THC alone has effectiveness, but consuming THC along with other cannabinoids like CBD and terpenes provides a more nuanced experience. When choosing a compound, it's important to know that the terpenes that are present, and they will direct which foods that it will complement the most. High limonene profile will be well suited for seafood, where pinene is complementary to grilled meats. Know your source and experiment with your recipes. So just to pause and review right there, there's 3 different levels when choosing your product at the dispensary to add to your recipes. So, what effect from THC has been prescribed or you feel would be best for you. So that's choice number 1. And then, do we add in, something with high CBD, volume to round out and make a more calming experience. And then we go for flavor. And that's when you look at the terpenes. So recipe time. This is where I'm most comfortable. What I've selected 3 recipes, and I'd really like to review first how to approach a recipe before you jump into it. And too often, no matter what we're making, we tend to start cooking before we're ready to start cooking. A recipe will say, saute diced onions, and you start the onions, and then and it says add the minced garlic, but you haven't minced the garlic yet. So in other words, you're not ready to cook when you start cooking. And knowing that cooking with cannabis, there's some math to be done. This is where you get into preparation. And in the kitchen, we call this mise en place, which in poor French simply means to put in place. So it's the organization that you do before you start the actual cooking. So it's a little corny, but bear with me. I encourage everyone to look at a recipe as a story or a play. So the characters are the ingredients, and they're all different. In this case, the cherry stone clams are shucked; they're not whole. So you're going to go through your list of ingredients and chop where it says chop, dice where it says dice, and organize all your ingredients before you move to the stove or the mixing bowl or the oven. Next, under method is how those characters, if you will, interact. So what's very, very important is to read the recipe through once and then read it again, because usually on the second read, you actually read it. And that kind of tells you where you're going with your ingredients as you're getting them prepared. So in this case, Great Clams Casino recipe. Actually went to culinary school in the Atlantic City area, so I brought this back with me. So fresh clams and garlic and veggies. And you'll notice that instead of regular butter, I've chosen can of butter for this. And this I would look for something that would be from a narrow leaf variety. It'd be a little bit brighter. I don't necessarily need a lot of CBD in this, but I would definitely look for a strain that has a lot of lemonade in it, because the lemons are going to go very, very well with the clams. So it's calling for a half a pound total, but that's spread out over 36 clams. So depending on your potency of that butter will tell you what the dosage is in each clam, and then how many clams you should eat to get to the desired dosing. So the rest is pretty easy. Mince and chop and saute all of your vegetables. Reheating the can of butter will not destroy its potency. Once it's made, it's good to go. Stuff the clams with the butter and put a small slice of the blanched bacon on top, and then I suggest an oven, baking rather than broiling. because you can accidentally scorch your bacon, and that would be a real shame not to enjoy these. So next up is an Argentinian flank steak. I'm a huge fan of flank with chimichurri. So you have a certified Angus beef flank steak that has a dry rub on it, and then the sauce is made separately. So this, I would suggest a cannabis infused olive oil. And here's where you could find a strain that maybe would be a little broader, a mid to broader leaf. It's a little more earthy in flavor, which will go great with the grilled meat. But here's where you could look for something, maybe with some pinene, which goes great with grilled meats. And for those of you lucky enough to have a charcoal grill, charcoal makes this, it really takes it to the next level. So you can do this on a broiler, on a regular gas grill. Charcoal will be the best. So grill the steak to your desired doneness, and then let it rest. I recommend resting anything heated especially with high heat, because when you grill or you roast, anytime you add heat, especially intense heat, you're going to drive moisture out of the fiber. And if you cut it right away when it comes out, it will leak out, and you will have a dry finished product. So let it rest, and it will reabsorb. Just some more cooking technique. If you think about ever making baking an apple pie or making a lasagna, you can't eat it when it comes out of the oven. It's the same for grilling steak. If you let it rest for a while, all those juices reabsorb and go back where they belong, and you wind up with a very tender, very juicy product that is just waiting for this very flavorful and bright cannabis infused chimichurri on top. And what would a class on culinary cannabis be without brownies? So this is a very basic chocolate brownie recipe. Again, we're going to bring into it some can of butter. 1.5 sticks is 6 ounces. So again, when you're doing the math, I'm sorry, 1.25 sticks is 5 ounces. So you're going to want to do your math based on that amount. You'll also note in here I've included a little bit of black pepper. I know that may sound a little bit odd, but black pepper and chocolate really pull out the beautiful bittersweetness of the chocolate. And it's not enough pepper to actually taste black pepper, but it does make a big difference. So again, line up your ingredients, do your mise en place, and then you're going to mix. And you really don't want to over mix this batter. Be very, very gentle and just incorporate. And as soon as it comes together, you can place it into a pan that's been lined with greased aluminum foil. Here's one suggestion. Once you have filled your pan, if you have a bench scraper or even a very broad spatula, go across the top of that and smooth out the top of that brownie. It's called massaging the brownie. And that will give you that nice crackling on top, especially in the corner pieces. So in order to get this certification, I had a lot of research and reading to do. So included in here are the 4 exact textbooks that I studied to get that certification. And I am including them here for further study. The first 3, Bon Appetit, Interpening, and Edibles, are all available online through Kindle. The Cannabis Encyclopedia is almost a coffee table book. But that is very, very in-depth. It goes into a lot of homegrown growing and everything you could ever want to do with tinctures and can of butter and can of oil, and just every derivative you can think of. And lastly, leafly.com is a website and also an app for your smartphone that gives lots of information in addition to purchasing information. So with that, I will toss it back to you, Kyle.